Hi, I can't get off the couch. I got fired from my job. I got kicked out of my apartment. I can't pay any of my bills. My car's a piece of shit. I don't have any friends.
You know what I find interesting about that, Annie? It's interesting to me that you have absolutely no friends. Do you know why that's interesting? Here's a friend standing directly in front of you, trying to talk to you, and you choose to talk about having no friends. Rob.
Hello, Gila.
How are you on this fine day?
I am well on this fine day when we are recording episode 309 of Modern Technology Watches.
309 of Modern Technology Watches?
Yes, indeed.
Amazing.
Modern Technology Watches, where I, Rob Vincent,
and I, Gila Drazen,
show one another films and movies and things from our collection, our collective collection, what we've collected.
Our collective collection that we've collected throughout the course of our lives and our marriage, because we are a married couple of film geeks with divergent tastes, I think.
Yes.
It's pretty fair.
And we are here doing this thing again.
And you know what?
What?
It's my pick.
It's your pick.
It's my pick.
So it is your turn to choose the film that we are experiencing.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm excited.
I am too. So I'm going to go fetch the DVD from the shelf.
And I am going to shut my eyes. My eyes are shut. I cannot see where you are going, but I get the general sense of where you're going, which is over to where our video collection wall is. It's quite a nice video collection. It's in a really big shelf that is anchored into a wall here in our apartment studio. And I'm told by people who have visited that when they come over and they see that particular collection and start browsing the titles and stuff, it seems like something that suits us both. We've had guests, we've had friends come over and tell us that.
Okay, I am here.
You are where?
I am back.
You are back.
I'm back in my chair.
You're back in your chair.
Yes.
Can I open my eyes now?
You can open your eyes now.
Oh, there you are.
Hello.
Hello.
I have returned.
Good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I know it was a long way.
It was a bit of a slog, a bit of a wait. You left me here and I didn't know what was going on.
I know. You were all by yourself.
What did you get for me? You got for me Bridesmaids. This is the Blu-ray disc of Bridesmaids. Okay, this is one that you've mentioned to me.
Several times. It's one with a lot of people that we appreciate in front of and behind the scenes. And this is collectible pop art series. So there's like a sleeve on the Blu-ray here, which has a nice sort of pop art look to it. And I'm guessing that's not the original poster situation. That is correct. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, oh no, it is the cover art on the DVD itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to read the back cover copy as we do in this little endeavor of ours. It's the same, I looked.
Okay, it is the same, but there's no credit block on the sleeve here. So I'll read it off the back of the Blu-ray case itself, out of the sleeve. HD picture and theater quality sound. All right. Includes both unrated and theatrical versions.
We're going to watch the theatrical version.
Okay. I'm going to get my old man glasses on because this is some fine print. All right. If this is only a chick flick, then call me a chick. Joe Morgenstern, The Wall Street Journal. Gut-bustingly funny, Bridesmaids gets an A. Owen Gleiberman, Entertainment Weekly. From the producer of Superbad, Knocked Up, and The 40-Year-Old Virgin, comes the breakup comedy critics are calling brazenly hysterical. Alinda Wheat, People. 30-something Annie, Kristen Wiig, has hit a rough patch but finds her life turned completely upside down when she takes on the maid of honor role in her best friend Lillian's, Maya Rudolph, wedding. In way over her head, but determined to succeed, Annie leads a hilarious hodgepodge of bridesmaids, Rose Byrne, Melissa McCarthy, Wendy McClendon-Covey, and Ellie Kemper, on a wild ride down the road to the big event. All right. Some bonus features, some pictures that really seem to imply this is a comedy. People are making laughy faces.
It really is a comedy, I promise.
It is an Apatow production.
It is.
Apatow. Kristen Wiig, Maya Rudolph. We love them.
We do.
Rose Byrne.
We like her.
Where do we like Rose Byrne from?
This. And the thing is that Rose Byrne is, is a very, like, classically trained actor. She was in Damages with Glenn Close. And then she really leaned into comedy about 13 years ago.
All right.
And she's in this. She's in Spy. She's in a bunch of stuff. And she and Bobby Cannavale are, like, married. And they do a bunch of stuff together. And it's great.
All right. Wendy McClendon Covey. I don't know who that is.
Reno 911.
Never saw it.
And she's the mom now on a show called The Goldbergs. So you've seen her around. You'll recognize her face.
Okay. Ellie Kemper, Melissa McCarthy, Chris O'Dowd. I like him.
By the way, going to back you up for a second. Melissa McCarthy, this is really where she broke out. She was nominated for an Oscar for this movie.
Okay. And I thought so. Executive producer Paul Feig. We like Paul Feig.
We like Paul Feig.
Produced by Judd Apatow. He's Judd Apatow. What else is there to be said? Directed by Paul Feig. Okay, so.
Written by Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo.
Oh, there it is, yes. Do we know Annie Mumolo?
Yes. So we've seen Annie Mumolo in other stuff. Annie Mumolo and Kristen Wiig are, like, really close friends and collaborators. Barb and Star.
Oh, was she the other one? Yes.
She was. She also in Surrender Fletch.
Confess Fletch.
That one. The weird neighbor with, like, the burnout stoner type.
Yes,
That's Annie Mumolo.
Okay. And also, that's just fun to say, Annie Mumolo.
It is.
So yeah, okay, written by Annie Mumolo and Kristen Wiig, directed by Paul Feig. All right.
Feig.
Directed by Paul Feig.
Yes. Feig, Fog, Fum.
Okay, well, there's not a hell of a lot of info on this case, but...
There's not, but...
It comes with a good pedigree, I think.
It does, and I'm very excited for you to see it.
Okay.
We're going to have a good time. So let's toss this to Torley, and we're going to head off to watch Bridesmaids, 2011's Bridesmaids.
2011's Bridesmaids.
2011's Bridesmaids.
Let's go.
All right. We're walking down the aisle for Bridesmaids. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Gila.
Are we back?
We are back.
Oh, we are back indeed. What'd you think?
Wow. Well, we have not taken a break or anything.
Nope.
We have just watched 2011's Bridesmaids.
Just.
And then sat down to record this, and wow.
So I have a question.
Yes.
This movie has been out for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can speak to the fact that in the past 7, we have not watched it together, and that's on me. But how did you not see this movie?
I don't know. It seems like one that I really should have seen. But
Yes.
I think I said to you as the credits were rolling, like, I enjoyed this both more and less than I thought I was going to.
Okay, could you speak more to that?
I don't know what I expected. If I expected something madcap and bizarre or something with feelings, and there's a little both here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I was expecting more madcap and less feelings, and I'm not saying this is a disappointment, but it defied my expectations, and I'm still recalibrating.
That's fair. I mean, the thing that I saw this in the theater with my mom, actually, which was a whole different set of interesting issues. But, I think part of it was that this was a movie that Judd Apatow produced, and it was 3 or 4 years after that big glut of Judd Apatow.
Yeah, maybe that moment when he was just like all over the place and everything. He had a ton of like just the bro movies, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about, 2007, you get Knocked Up, Superbad in the same summer.
Yes, Apatow versus Apatow.
Right. You get The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Superbad, Pineapple Express, etc., etc. Oh, and Anchorman. All these things that were like...
There's a picture here in Judd Apatow's wiki article, and it's Apatow in 2007, and he looks tired.
Thinking about this raunch, bro-com, hard R, like the hard R comedies starring the boys.
Right. And it was, his buddies from Freaks and Geeks.
Right. So this happened 4 years later, which was a hard R comedy starring girls. And the moment that it came out, it was like, wait a second. Wait, you know how every 10 years or so a movie came out and people were like, wait a second, women can open movies. And everybody was expecting something to happen and then it just didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like Thelma and Louise was 91 and A League of Their Own was 92.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, movies with predominantly female casts are opening big and doing good numbers. And then nothing.
Right.
And then about 10 years later, 01.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there was something that happened at that point where it was like, hey, a movie with a predominantly female cast can open big and do good numbers. It's going to change the world. And then it didn't. And then this was 2011. And a movie with a predominantly female cast.
Mm-hmm.
Hard R movie with a predominantly female cast.
Mm-hmm.
Opened big and did good numbers. And this movie was going to change the world. And it didn't.
Well, and it was only 11 years later, Everything Everywhere All at Once won all the awards, featured a predominantly woman-led cast, and changed everything, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah, we've now fixed it.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
I mean, we just saw a few weeks ago Road Trip?
Girls Trip.
Girls Trip. I keep getting the name of that movie wrong. I can't retain the name of the movie Girls Trip.
I don't know if you read one thing that they were initially a working title of the script.
Oh, you showed me this and I've forgotten.
Mm-hmm. The working title was The Joy Fuck Club.
Yes. Because they're a bunch of
Asian women
on a trip. Yeah. Doing another hard R sex comedy thing.
Exactly. And I mean, ultimately, I think that is a harder R than this was.
Yes. But for its time, it feels weird to think about 2011 and go, well, for its time, because we remember 2011.
We do.
It's this millennium yet.
But this was, for its time, it was subversive and it was different. And it was not something that you got to see a lot. And again, it was something that everybody expected was going to change the paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Did it? No. But it got nominated for Oscars, which was not a thing that you saw happen a lot otherwise. That was huge. And, there are discussions about certain aspects of it, I think that obviously we'll get to.
Mm-hmm.
But did Judd Apatow convince them to put in the whole food poisoning bit? I don't know.
Which we'll talk about.
We'll definitely talk about. But yeah, I thought this was fun and I hoped you would enjoy it.
I did. I quite enjoyed watching this. It was a fun view. It was fun seeing a bunch of people I love in this movie I hadn't seen them do. But also, there is the particular style of comedy that was very heavy in this movie. I love all kinds of comedy. I can get into really light comedies, really dark comedies, how did this get made comedies, but there is a certain branch of comedy where it's just the cringe comedy, the comedy that makes you wince. I can dig some of that. Upright Citizens Brigade, their TV series were all sketches like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a half-hour show, and this was how long a movie?
2 hours and 5 minutes.
2 hours and 5 of a lot of that.
I mean, I think I personally only went into full-body cringe spasm once.
What part did you do?
The bridal shower?
Yeah.
I believe that was when I just started kind of flopping around, and I think I buried my head in your side at one point just so I didn't have to look.
Yeah, and I had to look because I hadn't seen this movie before, and this is, journalistic integrity at stake.
100%.
But that was, I think, the peak of that during the movie. She's flopping around madly and doing this physical stuff that would be hilarious if it weren't because it was the character's emotional breaking point and she was crushed and losing her shit because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And sympathizing with the character, it's hard to then also appreciate the lulls of her flipping her shit all over this bridal party. So yeah, I got mixed signals from this movie. I think I appreciated it as a comedy more than I appreciated it as a film about friendship or romance or, the other stuff that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I say. When I say I liked it more and less than I thought it would, I liked it as a comedy more than I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it less as a rest of the movie than I thought I would.
Okay, so rolling back for a minute. Because if we look at those big Judd Apatow movies, those big breakthrough movies, which now that I think about it, were hard R, but also had the other stuff.
The message. The what was meant to give it all a human element and be that dividing line between just, oh, this is a zany comedy.
Exactly. You know, you've got the 40-year-old virgin stuff about him wanting to fall in love. You've got the knocked up stuff about being a dad. You've got the super bad stuff about your best friends and your life changing after you graduate from high school.
And it's interesting because I haven't seen any of those in their entirety. Like, I've seen bits and pieces of them and just always been like, you know, do I want to sit in front of the rest of this? Maybe not. Judd Apatow as a genre has never really been my favorite.
Dig. Even like Freaks and Geeks?
Freaks and Geeks was okay. I liked a lot about Freaks and Geeks. I have the box set up there. I haven't rewatched Freaks and Geeks in a long time. I liked the one run through that I had of, I think, most of it. But, you know, that kind of, I think that kind of struck a better balance. It didn't have the dreariness of like Wonder Years, and there was actual fun stuff, but it was also realistic. And there was a human heart to it. But as far as his films, like, I don't think there were any of them that I would see a trailer and go, you know, I got to see that with my bros. And we're going to go to the theater and we're going to drink beers and wear baseball hats backwards. And like,
I mean, you don't do any of those things. You go to the movie theater.
Yes.
But that's pretty much it.
Right. But that's kind of like the vibe that his stuff had that I wasn't really all that about.
So, and I know we're on a tangent here, but a friend of mine and I saw Knocked Up in the theater. It's weird, but Harold Ramis plays Seth Rogen's dad. There's stuff about being a dad and what it means to be a dad. And the song that plays over the closing credits, and my apologies for a thematic spoiler for a 16-year-old movie, the song that plays over the closing credits is Daughter by Loudon Wainwright III. Now, you're familiar with the song Daughter by Loudon Wainwright III. And the reason that I know you're familiar with Daughter by Loudon Wainwright III is because Daughter by Loudon Wainwright III is the song that I chose to be the father-daughter dance at our wedding, which we weren't able to do.
Right.
But had we been able to do that, that's what it would have been. That song makes me weep.
Yeah.
And it has for a long time, just for the record. Which is funny because the first song by Loudon Wainwright III that I first heard of was Dead Skunk.
A bit of a different vibe.
And he did a lot of the music for a movie called 28 Days, which I'm going to show you at some point. And then, of course, there's, lest we forget, there's Rufus is a Titman.
Rufus is a Titman.
Rufus is a Titman. Which he wrote for his son, Rufus Wainwright, when he was an infant. It's a song about breastfeeding.
I see. Okay.
Rufus is a Titman. He's hungry again. And that actually seems like a pretty good segue, because after watching this movie, how glad are you that we did not have a big splash out wedding party wedding?
So glad. It's something that I am constantly grateful for when seeing other wedding stuff and these big weddings that go south, and like wedding drama and stories about other weddings. And like, we've been to other weddings, which have been lovely, but at the same time, there is so much that you are just expected to do when you have a wedding that we quickly came to realize you don't have to. Our wedding was a very small, intimate family affair, and that was by necessity. But it also meant that we didn't have a wedding party in the sense of like bridesmaids, groomsmen, things like that. We didn't have all these things that we were freaking out over and paying through the nose for and stuff. We had a little gathering during which we got married.
And, you know, I've said to other people who are freaking out about their weddings, ultimately, all you need to get married, at least in the state of New York, is 2 adults, a license, and an officiant.
Right.
And everything else is gravy.
Mm-hmm. And the themes of this movie where the main character, Kristen Wiig, is freaking out because her best friend is getting married, but also she's afraid of losing her best friend to this other friend that seems to be doing more of the best friend things for her. And that's the source of a lot of the friction. And during our wedding, my best friend was there because she was the officiant.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of planning and everything, so many people came together and took care of things for us. And also we finagled and swang a lot of things as we needed to. And it all happened and it was lovely. And I'm forever grateful for it. Also, it's nothing that you would base a huge movie like this on. It wasn't that kind of wedding.
It wasn't that kind of wedding. But yeah, Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids. So you saw this in the theater.
I did.
Was it something you set out to see, or was it like, let's go see whatever's playing?
No, definitely set out to see it. I think I had set out to see it with friends, and we just weren't able to make the timing happen. And I remember seeing this with my mom, which somehow turned out less weird than you'd think, based on what this whole movie is about.
We know the stars of this movie from Saturday Night Live, and I asked you, when was this in terms of timeline? Like, who was on Saturday Night Live? Because now I'm a huge fan of this era, but at the time I had fallen off of Saturday Night Live by the time Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph were on, at least in their first runs. So I wasn't watching SNL at this point, but you were, I'm sure.
Yes.
And was that what made you go, I got to go see this movie with Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph?
Part of it, yeah. And it was also just, in the same way that I said when Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret came out, and I was like, we have to go see this because I want to make the point that it's important for movies like this to happen.
Sure.
I saw this movie was happening, and I was like, in addition to who's in it, I want to make the point that it's important for movies like this to exist.
Yeah, that's a good sentiment. If there's a movie that you think deserves to be a movie, deserves to be shown in theaters, then it deserves to have your ticket price and your interest. So, Bridesmaids.
So we are going to go to the Wikipedia page for Bridesmaids 2011 film. And is so often our practice, we will go to the cast section. But first, before we actually get to the list, there are a couple of notes here that we should probably address. The cast features brief appearances by several actors from the television series The Office, including Jessica St. Clair, Nancy Carell, Hugh Dane, and Andy Buckley.
Yeah, I don't know who any of those are. I never watched The Office.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you who they are. Jessica St. Clair, she was the salesperson at the bridal shop in the blue suit.
Okay.
Nancy Carell, also known as Nancy Walls.
Oh, okay. I knew Nancy Walls. World Without Walls.
Was Rose Byrne's doubles tennis partner.
Ah, okay.
Also completely not mentioned here is Melanie Hutzel, who was Kristen Wiig's partner in doubles. Andy Buckley played the husband. And Hugh Dane, I don't know who that is. And I don't know who he played. Oh. One of the guys that somebody thought Annie was dating.
Oh, yeah.
In that beginning segment.
Yeah.
Which was
Melissa
funny.
McCarthy was like, is this your fella?
Yeah.
And then when she learned it wasn't, she's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to climb that.
Like a tree. Annie Mumolo played the credited role of nervous woman on plane. If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, no, at the instant she turned up on the plane, I'm like, yeah, that was Barb from Barb and Star.
But I believe when they were going to be filming, Annie Mumolo was pregnant and couldn't make the movie.
Oh.
So I think Annie was going to play Annie initially, and then
Annie was going to play Annie.
Annie Mumolo was going to play the character of Annie.
So she had to back off of that, but she could still do her very brief cameo.
She could do a very brief cameo where she was sitting down, playing a crazy person.
Okay.
Yeah, they were groundlings together. And, okay. Paul Rudd is cut. I think his scenes are one of the special features on the DVD.
Yeah, I was looking at that before.
Apparently, the girl in the jewelry store, there's a 10-minute scene. There's a 10-minute cut of it that is Holy crap.
Oh. Okay. Describe what's going on.
Yes.
Because audio medium.
Audio medium, right. The young girl in the jewelry store behind whom Kristen Wiig loses her job in the jewelry store is named Mia Rose Frampton, daughter of Peter Frampton. The. He loves your way. What can I say?
He came alive. Hey.
Hey. Okay, so we're ready for the list.
Yes, but also just talking of Paul Feig for a moment, because he's not in the cast, though he did have a very brief cameo himself. But I like him.
I know.
I like him so much, and I want to eventually check out everything he had a hand in, so I'm glad I've seen this. Paul Feig. He's good.
Okay.
And I liked his Ghostbusters a lot.
I did too.
We saw that together.
We did.
It was nice.
It was. All right. Going from the bottom up, as we do.
On the cast section of Bridesmaids 2011 film.
Now, one person who's not in this section who should be, fix yourself, Wikipedia, is the actor who played Maya Rudolph's mom, Lynn Marie Stewart.
Lynn Marie Stewart.
Played Lillian's mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw her name go by in the credits, and I yelped a little bit, and I said I didn't recognize her because of the hair.
Yes. It took me a minute, but I did recognize her, and I think it's because we just rewatched.
Yeah. So for people who are not familiar with what we're talking about, Lynn Marie Stewart was a central figure in the Pee Wee Herman universe from the stage show, from the Pee Wee Herman show in 1981.
Mm-hmm. She was a groundling.
And she played Miss Yvonne, the most beautiful woman in Puppetland.
Yes. When she played Miss Yvonne, she went out there in like this frilly 50s inspired dress and this massive wig, this huge wig of red hair that
flipped up at the bottom.
Yeah.
This is an epic wig. And then to see her in this movie with like
regular ass hair,
white pixie cut.
Yeah.
I was like, but yes, Lynn Marie Stewart, who should be listed here, Wikipedia.
It's nice to see her.
It's always lovely to see her. Yeah. The last name on the list here is John Hamm as Ted.
Who doesn't like John Hamm?
I mean, his character in this movie was kind of horrible.
Yeah, but that was like, was he doing Mad Men at this point, or?
This was near the end of Mad Men, I want to say. And okay, so this
where he was also famously playing an asshole.
True.
I never watched that show, but I know the memes.
So this movie came out in the spring of 2011. And the world was shocked when Kristen Wiig came back for another season of Saturday Night Live. Her final episode in May of 2012, a year after this,
right?
Hosted by Mick Jagger.
Oh, yes.
And who appeared in the cold open to do the Lawrence Welk show with Dunice one last time? Johnny Prosciutto.
Johnny Prosciutto, yes.
Yes. We do love John Hamm. He is the dick in this movie, but we love John Hamm.
Yes. We're also watching the second season of Good Omens right now.
Yes.
In which he's playing the Archangel Gabriel, who lost his memory and is now a human working in Aziraphale's bookshop. And
thinks his name is Jim.
Yeah. It's, I would put a spoiler warning, but that's like the first 5-10 minutes of the entire series. So, yeah. And he is so much fun to watch in everything I've seen him in.
He's delightful.
He's delightful as an asshole in this movie.
Up next, we have Matt Bennett as Helen's stepson.
Yeah, no idea.
He's there. He does at one point say, "Fuck you, Helen." And that's it.
Okay.
Moving on. Franklin AJ, or Ajaya, I don't know, as Lillian's father. So here's something fun. He is a stand-up. He's a writer. His nickname is the Jazz Comedian. And in this movie, he was in Car Wash, for God's sake.
I recognize this guy now that I'm looking at him from the 70s. I recognize him. I did not recognize him in the movie.
Well, in the movie, he's got long dreadlocks, long white dreadlocks. And in the movie, he's mad. And the thing is, and it's something that doesn't get addressed a lot, but he spends his whole time like, gosh, I wish you guys would get married now because I can't afford this wedding. And that's the whole thing. I can't afford this wedding.
And everyone laughs and he goes, I'm not joking.
Yep.
I'm not joking. Yeah, he was on Flip Wilson's show.
He was in an episode of Barney Miller in 1976. Emigrated to Australia in 1997.
Huh.
But comes back every so often. Oh my goodness, he was a writer on In Living Color.
Well then.
He was fun. He was crabby.
Mm-hmm.
Jillian Bell as Girl at Shower. I don't...
No
moving
idea.
On.
We can kind of zoom through a bunch of these, but Terry Crews deserves a mention.
Terry Crews, who was the Rodney, apparently. There's a scene in the very beginning of the movie where Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig are going...
They're stealing an exercise class in the park.
They're stealing an exercise class in the park.
And it's great. Terry Crews is the exercise teacher, and you see him off in the distance with a bunch of people that he's doing the instructor thing of
berating. He's berating
people and telling them, do your exercise and this and that. And you look like pieces of bacon frying and screaming at them. And Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph are behind a tree some distance away doing the sit-ups with them, looking over and like, oh, he's so controlling, but he's such a good teacher. And then he catches them at it, stealing his class. And he's like, you got to pay the $12.
You fucking freeloaders.
That was so good. I loved the gag, and it's always nice to see Terry Crews in something.
Yes. A brief scene.
Also known as President Camacho.
Yes. Although we never watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
We never watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've never seen it. I'm told I should.
He was on it.
He was President Camacho in Idiocracy. He was the guy after Isaiah Mustafa in those Old Spice commercials.
I do enjoy Terry Crews.
Yeah, he's good.
Up next, we have Mitch Silpa as flight attendant Steve.
Stove.
It's Steve. I get him confused occasionally with other bald comedians. Like I get him and Joe Coy mixed up.
Well, skinny bald comedians.
Skinny bald comedians, yeah. Skinny, crabby, bald comedians.
So you don't confuse him with me at all.
I don't confuse anybody with you. You're special.
Aw.
I know you. Dana Powell as flight attendant Claire.
Yeah, she said, like, go back to your seat once or twice, and that was it.
Yeah, she's there. Okay, this is a spoiler. This should be marked. Ben Falcone as John, who's listed here as Air Marshal John.
Yeah.
He's on the plane, and Melissa McCarthy immediately grokks him as an air marshal, and he spends his whole time like, I'm not an air marshal. I'm not an air marshal. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not an air marshal. And then when Kristen Wiig is disruptive, he's like, I'm an air marshal. It's funny. The fun thing is that he is Melissa McCarthy's husband.
In real life.
In real life. And I said to you, yeah, all the movies she's done, he has written and or directed a majority of them. Like Tammy. And the one about the Girl Scout cookie lady, and every movie that you've seen, you're like, wow, Melissa McCarthy could be doing so much better. Her husband wrote and or directed it.
Well, as your husband who also ropes you in on my projects, you could be doing a lot better too, but you're sticking around with me for some reason.
No, but the stuff that... I'm sorry, in terms of Melissa McCarthy doing better, it's like these movies that her husband wrote and or directed that are making her look foolish. The material could be better.
You could be doing better material too than what I give you.
No. Also, this is completely unscripted.
Well, this is, yeah, but we do scripted stuff.
We do scripted stuff. But
which we got to get back on at some point.
Anyway, he's cute. He's fun. I like it. They're fun together, which is good because, again, they're married.
Yeah,
Yes.
he seems fun. And they have a little after credits or during the credits sequence that is a lot of fun.
Tim Heidecker as Douglas Dougie Price. I did not know that was him.
Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of Tim and Eric.
Awesome show. Great job.
Because for the same reason, like that whole show just went straight for the cringe. And that's usually not the kind of comedy I'm looking for.
Do you remember on season 15 of RuPaul's Drag Race where they did the second season of the Daytona Wind?
Right.
And whereas in season 14 it was all fart jokes and it was really funny. This season they were trying to get them to lean into the humor when they were filming it, and then it just became super awkward and cringe, and RuPaul explained in a really, really obvious voiceover that they were trying to do an homage to Tim and Eric. Great show, awesome job. Awesome show, great job, whatever.
Yeah. But like Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job was mostly like, I love watching public access and like the weird random stuff. Like I was part of public access for a while with stuff I used to work on. But even before that, I loved watching public access and all the random, you know, amateurish 2-pro stuff that you would never see anywhere else. And Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job was like trying to capture that vibe while also saying, man, these people are freaks. And yeah, I think it's less fun that way. Mm. So, you know, there have been things that Tim and or Eric have done that I have enjoyed. And I will watch maybe one episode of Tim and Eric, awesome show, great job, once in a very blue moon. But really, I'd much rather be watching the stuff they're taking the piss out of.
Fair enough. The interesting thing about his role in this movie is that while he is technically the impetus for a lot of what happens, because there wouldn't be a wedding had his character not proposed, he's not relevant.
No, he doesn't matter. He's the MacGuffin.
Absolutely. He's just there. When I was little, I used to, you know, dream about a wedding. And the groom had no face because he was not important.
Yeah.
The cat was not the point. And it was kind of like that. You know, if my Rudolph had been up there with a mannequin, it would have been the same thing. Up next, Michael Hitchcock as Don.
Which one was Don?
He was the boss of, if not the owner of, the jewelry store.
Oh, right. That guy with that face.
Michael Hitchcock, who in one of my favorite moments in A Mighty Wind, which is just a good movie top to toe. But you remember when he hits Bob Balaban in the back of the head?
I had forgotten he was in A Mighty Wind, but now that you mention it, I can picture him, yes.
He's in all of them. He's in Best in Show.
Yes, he's part of the whole band of Christopher Guest irregulars.
Yes. And he's just goofy and ludicrous and, you know, is a really good sort of middle managery white guy type. You're here because your mom's my AA sponsor and I'm doing her a favor.
Yes.
He's there. He is, you know, just kind of part of the everything that's not working out in Kristen Wiig's life. He's got a couple scenes. Good stuff.
Yes.
We like Michael Hitchcock. Okay. Rebel Wilson as Bryn.
She was Rebel Wilsoning it up.
She certainly was.
Which worked in this because she was supposed to be annoying and off-putting.
And also she was just really only there in brief inserts.
Yes.
Like we didn't get her for more than 2 to 3 minutes at a time.
Yes, and no, that's the correct dosage for Rebel Wilson.
Right. I think there was one time in history that I've been like, you know what that movie could have used was more Rebel Wilson? Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah. Yeah. But that wasn't her standard fare.
Correct.
But she was with the next one on our list.
The next one on our list is Matt Lucas as Gil.
Yes. And Gil and Bryn are the brother and sister that live with Kristen Wiig's character. Yes. And Matt Lucas, he's great.
He is.
I love Matt Lucas. And I enjoyed his comedy. And then he turned up on Doctor Who and was one of the companions for a couple of seasons with Peter Capaldi. And I thought he was great on there. But also I realized now, after the fact, that when we were watching that era of Doctor Who together, you must have been like, hey, that's the guy from Bridesmaids.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, having this as a frame of reference was like, oh, his character was gross in this. And then I really liked Nardole, his character on Doctor Who.
Yes.
And I was like, wait a second. I'm really liking this guy. And it took me a moment to like get right with the fact that I was enjoying his character that much because he was really unpleasant here.
He was very good in this as the creepy, off-putting, the brother of Rebel Wilson. So the two of them together were very...
Squick,
yes. And that was the job. That was the role. And it worked.
And they did it so well.
Very much.
Up next, we have Jill Clayburgh as Judy Walker.
Which one was Judy?
Her mom.
Ah, okay.
Cast away from the Netflix. This was her final film role.
Oh. Now what do we know her from?
What don't you know her from? I think might be a better.
I think she was a that guy, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was kind of everywhere for a while.
Oh, yes, of course. Just looking at the picture of her that comes up on her own wiki, which is again from the 70s.
Pretty confident she hosted Saturday Night Live. All right, we're just gonna
big theater actor.
Oh wow.
Oh, she was Desdemona opposite James Earl Jones in Othello.
She hosted Saturday Night Live on February 28th, 1976, with musical guest Leon Redbone. I knew I recognized.
This is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. I remember her from Silver Streak with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Yeah. Okay. I think that might be chiefly what I was remembering her from.
Yes, and she was nominated for an Oscar for An Unmarried Woman in 1978. Yeah, she married a playwright, and her daughter is an actor now, too. So, yeah, she passed away in December of 2010, so this is actually posthumous for her.
Oh, Portnoy's Complaint. All right.
Wait, hang on. Can we go back up for a sec? Starting Over was her second Oscar nomination.
Appropriate.
Carry on.
Okay, yeah, and this was her final movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, total 70s that guy. And worked her ass off, apparently. She was good in the role, and the role was, again, cringe-inducing person that sets your teeth on edge.
Jill Clayburgh was good. She was sweet.
Yeah, she was sweet and also aggravating.
Absolutely.
And if you're playing the mom in this, that's what you got to do.
Exactly.
It was good.
Exactly. Next on our list, we have Chris O'Dowd as Officer Nathan Rhodes.
Chris O'Dowd.
Chris O'Dowd.
I like him so much.
Me too. And you know what's nice about this? You know who's not involved with this at all? Graham Linehan is just not involved with this at all.
Yes. Because, oh my God, Chris O'Dowd, for those unfamiliar, was one of the two leads with Richard Ayoade in the show The IT Crowd, which was all the rage for a hot second. The creator of that show, Graham Linehan, has a whole lot to answer for. He's basically a massive piece of crap.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, it turns out, if you look at The IT Crowd with a critical eye, there were signs, let's say. And so it's good to see Chris O'Dowd in this. And he was a voice in Human Resources with Maya Rudolph again.
Yes. And he's so lovely. And the fact that I'm willing to say about a cop, he's so lovely.
Yes. Like all my favorite cops, he's fictional. But he did really well in the role for this. You were rooting for the guy.
Apparently the character was not written as Irish, but they liked his voice so much they didn't.
Yeah, no, you don't tell Chris O'Dowd, hey, dial back that wonderful, delightful, heartwarming voice you have.
Yeah, I remember after seeing this movie, it was 2011, and I was like, who was the Irish guy? What was his name? Irish guy from Bridesmaids.
Irish guy from yeah. No, he was great.
He was great. Up next, we have Ellie Kemper as Becca.
And which one was Becca?
Becca was the young one who was like super into Disney.
Oh, yes. And she had only ever been with her husband.
Correct. You smell like pine needles and your face is like sunshine.
Yes.
Yes.
I think everyone's known someone like that. And she did a good job. And she was really charming and cute in the role.
She went on, she was in The Office. And then after this, she went on to the titular role in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw like 2 episodes of that. Our friend Cable Flame was crashing at my place once and showed me a couple episodes. I think when it was new, when it was going out. It was interesting. And I didn't stick with it.
I watched the first episode, didn't stick with it, might be interested in going back to it. Yeah. Not least, like Carol Kane is in it. Jane Krakowski's in it.
Yes.
Titus Burgess is in it.
Yes. Now celebrated Star Trek actor Carol Kane.
You still can't get me to watch that show.
She was so good in Strange New Worlds.
Except that one episode that we watched together.
Yes.
Okay, 2 episodes.
Well, one and a half. You fell asleep during the musical, which I didn't know that was possible.
Me falling asleep during a musical? It can be done.
I guess when the musical is about tachyon fields and warp signatures.
It's just clicking. All I'm hearing is clicking. So Ellie Kemper, sweet, young. Fun fact. She grew up in St. Louis. And if I'm not mistaken, John Hamm was her drama teacher in high school.
Well.
Like before he made it, I think that was her.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. The other side of that coin is Wendy McLendon-Covey as Rita.
Wendy McLendon-Covey. And what else have I seen her in? Because she totally looked familiar.
Let's take a look. Definitely Reno 911.
I think I've maybe watched one or two Reno 911s 100 years ago.
Reno's 911?
Yeah. I mostly remember Thomas Lennon in tiny shorts.
Yeah. Fair. She's in the Bewitched movie. A bunch of stuff that she was in Barb and Star.
She was in Barb and Star. Okay. Which I did see.
I know, I was there. She was in a movie called Douchebag.
She voiced Mudflap on Bob's Burgers.
Huh.
You remember Mudflap?
I do remember Mudflap.
The biker girlfriend who gives birth in the restaurant.
Yep. She's on season 1 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars, which we have not watched.
Yeah.
Because it's bad.
Yeah. No, okay, there's pretty much nothing else on her filmography here that I would recognize her from. I guess I must be recognize her from Barb and Star.
But yeah, it was fun watching those two characters bouncing off each other.
Yes.
I think they were definitely created to be the counterpoint, counterpuntal.
Yeah, it totally worked, because while Ellie Kemper's character was the little demure one, she was the one who had lived a life and then was now stuck with like a husband who didn't appear to be doing it for her anymore, and a bunch of kids who hated her.
Who were gross.
And
She broke a blanket in half.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They sit next to each other on the airplane and are probably the best thing about the whole airplane sequence.
Stove. It was interesting getting to see everybody, in those. Would you say they were the very best thing about the airplane sequence? Because I think everybody had their moment to shine.
Everyone had a moment to shine, but I think my favorite stuff was the interplay between the two of them.
Okay. Our next listed actor is Melissa McCarthy as Megan Price.
Oh my God, what's there to be said about Melissa McCarthy? I mean, she was great in this, but did you say she got nominated for an Oscar?
She did.
That kind of blows my mind a bit, because I would not have watched this and thought that's an Oscar-nominated performance right there. But she was definitely, she was a scene stealer, as is the remit of actors who look like her. Unfortunately, they ended up being a lot of the, oh, she's fat, so let's make the jokes about she's eating food.
Yeah. And the thing is, this came out in May 2011, which was at the end of the first season of Mike and Molly.
Mike and Molly?
Mike and Molly, side note, was a Chuck Lorre show about two people who met in Overeaters Anonymous.
Oh, I think we've talked about this at some point.
Yeah.
Audio medium, they can't hear the face you're making.
Are you sure? I feel like they probably could.
Yeah.
Melissa McCarthy, though, is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I would follow her anywhere. She told the one good joke in the movie Tammy.
Which was?
Magoo goggles. She was yelling at her grandmother, played by Susan Sarandon, first of all. Let's not even talk about that math.
All right.
But she's talking about the sunglasses that go over your glasses. She referred to them as Magoo goggles. That's where that joke came from. That was the one good joke in the movie Tammy, was Magoo goggles.
Is that why the pair of those that we have on our rack are called the Magoo goggles?
Yes, that is why I call them the Magoo goggles. I stole that joke from Bad Movie.
All right, then.
A very bad movie.
Glad to know where it comes from. Thank you.
Yes. There's also a wonderful moment in the Emmys, from the 2011 Emmys, where everybody who was nominated for Best Actress in a Comedy, they did a bit together, like it was a pageant, and they all went and stood on stage together and held hands, and we have to see if we can find it, because it's great.
Okay.
It was Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Martha Plimpton, Laura Linney, and Melissa McCarthy.
Huh.
And they all did this together.
That's great.
It was amazing. We'll find it. So, right. Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, playing the Melissa McCarthy role, I think, in this, it's safe to say.
Oh, she had been on a show called Gilmore Girls?
Yeah. My best friend was way into Gilmore Girls when that went out. I wasn't that interested in the show, but I watched some over her shoulder. And
so, yeah, this is her big breakout year. Okay, I want you to read the first sentence in the first paragraph in the career section.
Of Melissa McCarthy's own wiki article.
Yes.
McCarthy made her first television appearance in an episode of the NBC comedy series Jenny, opposite her cousin Jenny McCarthy?
Uh-huh.
Holy crow.
Yeah, I knew you were going to react like that, which is why I asked you to read it.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
I never put 2 and 2 together there. And I have never been watching Melissa McCarthy and been thinking, oh, wow, I bet she's related to a bubble-headed anti-vax nutcase who is most famous for being annoying on a game show with that jerk-ass Chris Hardwick.
It's still weird to me that Jenny McCarthy is married to Donnie Wahlberg.
I don't know that I knew that. In fact, I know that I didn't know that.
Jenny McCarthy is married to Donnie Wahlberg.
I know she was going out with Jim Carrey at one point.
Mm-hmm. But now she's married to Donnie Wahlberg.
Well,
All right, well,
before the current medical environment and everything, when being anti-vax was mostly about other things and not COVID,
mm-hmm.
there was a website that tracked deaths that could have been, the number of deaths that could have been prevented by vaccines if people had gotten their vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
And that website, the original name of it was the Jenny McCarthy Death Count.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't believe it's up anymore. I think it went down like way before COVID. But
so, Melissa McCarthy in this movie. I don't know if she actually wasn't wearing makeup for most of it, or they just made it up to look like she wasn't wearing makeup.
I mean, at a certain point, you have to be wearing makeup. Otherwise, the lights will reflect differently on you than they are for everyone else, unless you want to look really sweaty.
I'm told that the look she was going for this movie, she was taking her fashion cues from Guy Fieri.
Sure. That fits.
And I think the thing about her performance in this movie that everybody thought was so amazing, in addition to the fact she is incredibly funny, is that she just went for it. There was a bunch of physical comedy stuff that she did.
Oh, yeah. The wrestling on the couch. That was amazing.
Also, at the bridal store, when she first tried to pick up the couch and then she just kind of flumped over the side of it.
Yeah. I can imagine coming at this, like, if you only knew Melissa McCarthy as the best friend in Gilmore Girls, which was not like zany jumping over the furniture comedy, because that show was just written and written and written and written. So every single character was basically a good-looking typewriter. Joke, joke, joke.
See, and now you've explained why I don't like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Don't you mean the Jew-Face Happy Fun Time Hour?
The Jew-Face Stand-Up Happy Fun Time Hour, yes.
Jew-Face Stand-Up Happy Fun Time Hour.
Jew-Face Stand-Up Happy. Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. I know that I seem like I should be a huge fan of Amy Sherman Palladino and everything that she does, and I'm just not.
But yeah, I can see this blowing everyone's mind, seeing that side of Melissa McCarthy for the first time.
And also just the fact that she was just willing to go for, like, she commits in every single moment here. She commits.
Yes. And I think that can be said for, like, most of her work, if not all of it.
Driving the Woody van with the 9 puppies in it.
Yeah. But also just everything else she's done, like the stuff in Ghostbusters, flying around while the gun in her hand is going nuts, and all the insane stuff in that movie, the stuff when she's possessed.
The stuff when she was on Saturday Night Live and she drank an entire bottle of ranch dressing.
Yeah. And, playing Sean Spicer for 4 years or whatever it was. The degree of commitment she has to absolutely anything they give her to do is great. And I want to keep seeing more things that she was in. But yeah, she's great in this.
Speaking of, next on the cast list is Rose Byrne as Helen Harris III. Now, I'm just going to jump in here for a second and say that it bothers me, but she's not Helen Harris III. Her husband is whatever his first name is, Harris III. Perry Harris III. She's not Helen Harris III.
But the movie calls her that.
I know. I mean, I think it's really landing really well on the line of pretentious.
Yes. The butler or whoever it is like, are you a guest of Helen Harris III?
But she definitely was into that. This character is supposed to be annoying. You're not supposed to like her. And she does it so well.
She does. She does. And yes, she's very pretty, as is the whole running gag of Kristen Wiig meets her. And the first thing she says is, you're very pretty. You're so pretty. And yeah, she nails right where this role needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Her career up to this point had been very...
Oh, she's Australian.
Yeah.
I did not know that. She was Dorme in Star Wars Episode 2.
Yeah, so she had done a lot of dramatic stuff, and then 2011 came this comedic pivot.
Mm-hmm. She had a Leslie Nielsen turn, basically.
Mm-hmm. She was on this very serious show called Damages.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was in the Casanova, the David Tennant Casanova.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, serious, significant pivot into comedy.
Hmm.
And it's gone very well for her, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a new show called Platonic, where she and Seth Rogen play like lifelong best friends who are now both newly single. It's a whole thing.
Well, she did very well in this movie.
She certainly did. She certainly did.
Yeah, you love to hate her, and then by the end, you kind of care about her.
Yeah. Next on the list, we have Maya Rudolph as Lillian Donovan.
Oh my God, Maya Rudolph. Not to get all parasocial relationship fan, but can she just be my best friend and like hang out with me all the time in real life, please?
Oh my God, you're so cute.
I mean, she is wonderful. You could watch her do anything on Saturday Night Live, and no matter how much the sketch is crashing and burning around her, she's still worth watching.
Mm-hmm. Whatever it is. Did you see the show that she did in the summer of 2015?
Which one was that?
It was a summer sketch comedy primetime series called Maya and Marty.
No. Oh, I heard about this. And I want to see it.
I was super into it.
Because Marty was...
Martin Short.
Who I will also follow anywhere.
Because in 2014, at the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary show, the two of them, Maya Rudolph and Martin Short, were anchoring the music tribute section.
Mm-hmm.
And the chemistry that the two of them had in that segment, NBC was like, well, let's check this out. They ordered up a summer show for them, which Mikey Day and Kenan Thompson were in.
We might need to try and hunt this down.
Mm-hmm. I really liked it.
But yes, she is great in everything she has acted in. She is great as a voice worker. Oh my God. Big Mouth and Human Resources wouldn't be a patch on what they are without her as Connie.
Bubble bath.
Bubble bath.
Bubble bath.
Bubble bath.
Oh my God, I love her so much.
And she is wonderful, and the interplay with her and Kristen, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, because, we had experience of them together before this movie, I totally bought them as really good friends.
Yes.
Did they know each other since they were 5? Sure.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I would have bought that even if I hadn't known their work from Saturday Night Live and other stuff.
So, just a Saturday Night Live tangent, because, of course. Gwyneth Paltrow.
Mm-hmm.
Just go with me on this.
Okay, but cautiously.
They grew up together.
Gwyneth Paltrow and Maya Rudolph?
Yeah.
Good heavens.
And in the monologue, they talk about it. They show pictures of themselves, like, from high school. May have to show you this.
Okay.
Because I get it. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
It's really great. And I will continue to watch Maya Rudolph do what the hell ever.
So we're going to close out with Kristen Wiig as Annie Walker.
Kristen Wiig as Annie Walker. Now, I just want to look one thing up here.
Oh, God. That movie was such crap.
Yeah. 2013.
2013?
Good heavens. Because I just looked up the Secret Life of Walter Mitty film from 2013, which featured Ben Stiller.
Look at who was in it. It should have been so much better than it was.
That whole movie, like, but Kristen Wiig, I think most of all, she was so wasted in that movie because her character was like a nothing character. She got nothing to do. It was all about how great Ben Stiller's character was. Mm-hmm. And directed by Ben Stiller.
It's all Hail Gila.
He's got all these fantastic people around him, and he gives them garbage to work with. And I love the original story, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty by James Thurber. But it's like 2 pages, maybe 2.5 pages of, an interesting little character study, and that's it. And he turns it into this movie, which was 114 minutes long, and having little to nothing to do with what was presented in that Thurber story. And that movie was such a waste of film and electricity. I hate that movie so much.
The National Board of Review can suck it.
Yeah. One of the top 10 films of 2013. I guess they were sick every other week.
What the hell?
That movie was such garbage and wasted Kristen Wiig. And I was thinking, like, was she not enough of a star yet? Like, had she not really done things before they started giving her more things to do in movies?
No.
But no, this movie was 2 years before that. And it's great. Where we start to get into stuff I didn't like so much about this movie has to do with Kristen Wiig's character of Annie. Because, yeah, it was the joke that she was getting in her own way and stuff. But also, it kept coming back to her doing things that were obviously wrong and obviously going to blow up in her face. And this goes back to the sort of cringe comedy end of the spectrum, where she's like very obviously just being an idiot. And sometimes for the sake of the plot of a movie, you need your main character, who you've already described as a more realistic, fully formed human being, to suddenly be like cartoon level dumbass. And they kept doing that with her.
Which is also interesting because she wrote it.
Yeah. And it was like we were watching Toast of London,
Yes.
Toast of Tinseltown.
Toast of Tinseltown.
The most recent season of the show, which was known as Toast of London before. And Matt Berry, the star of that show, is also the creator and writer, or a creator and writer of that show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that situation where they are dumping so much on this character and just kicking the shit out of him and giving him such a bad time, where if I didn't know that this was by the person who's playing that character, I would think, wow, the writer-director really hates that actor, and they're just putting him through the ringer.
Not unlike the conversation we had around A New Leaf.
Yes.
Where Elaine May was terrible to Elaine May.
Yes, exactly. And Elaine May in that movie was like cartoon level awful in service of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie was by her.
Exactly.
So knowing that Kristen Wiig wrote this in order to portray Kristen Wiig's character as that sort of aggravating, oblivious asshole, but also the kind of sweet put upon central main character that you're empathizing with.
Mm-hmm.
It was
A lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot. But I think she did well in the role.
Mm-hmm.
I think if someone else had given her this material, I'd say she did well with what they gave her. So I will say she did well with what she gave her. She did well with what she gave herself.
Indeed.
So.
Yes. So we have talked about the cast.
We have talked about the cast.
We have talked about the cast, and we are ready to talk about the plot.
The plot. From the Wikipedia article for Bridesmaids 2011 film.
Yes. This looks detailed, which is good. So we'll see what the Wikipedians left out. We'll see what we want to add. And let's get into it, huh? Okay. Annie Walker is a single, underachieving, down-on-her-luck woman in her mid-30s living in Milwaukee. So far, so good. Her bakery failed due to the recession, wiping out her savings and causing her boyfriend to leave her. That is a shitty sentence.
Her bakery failed due to the recession, wiping out her savings and causing her boyfriend to leave her.
I don't think her boyfriend left her because the bakery failed. I think it just happened around the same time. Also,
yeah. I mean, these aren't things you see in the movie. You see the repercussions afterward.
And you hear it mentioned briefly that it all happened around the same time. But I'm reasonably willing to posit that the boyfriend didn't bail because the bakery failed.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Unless someone writes the fanfic.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
It's 3.
I know it's 3. Did I tell you, though, I once watched a kid do it?
Figure out how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
No. When I was in 7th grade, a kid in my homeroom, so this is 7:45 in the morning, a kid in my homeroom pulled out a Tootsie Pop and said 1, 2, 3, and then he bit through the entire Tootsie Pop on the 3rd lick. 7th grade, 7:45 in the morning.
It's another $150 for his dentist.
Yes, I watched a kid bite through an entire Tootsie Pop. Way too early in the morning. True story. Okay. Having lost her passion for baking, she works a stressful, underpaid job at a jewelry store and shares an apartment with eccentric British immigrant siblings Gil and Bryn.
Matt Lucas and Rebel Wilson.
Being
off-putting and creepy.
Yes. I think they cut the scene where the two of them are in the bathtub together. Also, something we're not mentioning here is that the job she has at the jewelry store is because her boss is one of her mom's AA sponsees.
Yes.
And that does not get mentioned, but...
No, that gets mentioned. Her boss mentions it.
In the Wikipedia, I mean.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes.
Yes. And at one point she says to her mom, you shouldn't be going to AA. You don't drink. And her mom's like, no, but they're so nice there.
Yeah, as in she's not an alcoholic.
She's not an alcoholic, so why is she at AA? I don't know.
She goes because she just likes the vibe.
Which works. Annie has a casual sexual relationship with the wealthy and self-absorbed Ted, who treats her like an object. Rob?
Yes?
How does this film open?
It opens with them having a really awkward sex scene, which I mentioned this is the best film opening consisting of a really awkward sex scene since Citizen Ruth.
You said something nice about Citizen Ruth.
No, I think that was me saying something bad about this movie.
Also true. Or perhaps both. We could look at it both.
Porque no los dos.
Exactly. I think, yeah, it was a weird beginning. And then I was thinking about this earlier. What we expect from a Judd Apatow movie. He didn't write it and he didn't direct it, but he produced it. Mm-hmm. And that sense of arrested development and all these people, you just kind of want to be like, oh my God, just make up your mind and do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of them. Super bad, which he didn't write, but still. Knocked Up. Funny People. All of those movies. I was just like, sorry, listeners. Audio medium. You cannot see the look I just gave my husband, but rest assured, I meant it.
She did too.
I did. And again, Ted is played by John Hamm.
Yes.
Who is uncredited. Funny. And it's interesting because I was like, because they do credits in order of appearance, he should have been right there at the beginning. But he's not.
No. The sex scene itself, it was really awkward. And also, I don't know if I even want to mention this, but it bugs me when it happens in movies where, okay, it's supposed to be a sex scene. They're having sex. She's in her push-up bra the whole time.
She's in her push-up bra the whole time. And then apparently she slept in it. Because there's that scene of her getting up the next morning very quietly to brush her teeth and fluff her hair. So, you know, so she doesn't look like she just woke up and grossing out this guy because...
Yeah, this isn't me saying, hey, Kristen Wiig should have totally got him out in this movie. But I don't know. It's that Hollywood sort of sex scene that usually ends with somebody in L-shaped sheets and...
yes, except in this one, no L-shaped sheets
because she's in her push-up bra.
Because she's in her push-up bra.
Do you think that was like an intentional thing on the part of the filmmakers? Like to show how uptight she is by her keeping her push-up bra on?
I don't think it's uptight so much as insecure.
Okay.
Because there's also, you know, she and Ted keep talking about how their relationship isn't defined. Mm-hmm. There's no permanence.
Yeah, there's this whole thing where she's like very obviously wanting more, but she's saying things like, no, I'm okay with this as it is. And
I'm not like other girls.
I'm not like other
girls. Yeah. And can you turn the screen a little bit toward me?
She says that?
That's no, she doesn't, but maybe she should.
Yeah. No, but she's saying all these things and she's like, I'm not looking for a boyfriend unless you're interested in that. And then I'd be like, okay, but
wouldn't that be funny? Because I'm totally not looking for that unless you are. The cringe factor cannot be overstated.
Total cringe factor.
And there's so much cringe here.
And we're just getting started.
We're literally 5 minutes in at this point. Yes. The only positive presence in her life is her lifelong best friend, Lillian. So you see her and Lillian going to this workout class that they have sort of snuck into.
Yes.
Terry Crews yelling at them. And then they go to get brunch, and they talk about their lives, and Lillian is very clearly not on board with this whole Ted situation because he makes Annie feel bad. And at this point, yeah, Lillian's living in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
This is important. And this doesn't get mentioned here either. Wikipedia, fix yourselves.
So what's missing?
The part that we don't mention is that everybody else lives in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about this recently because if you are a Midwestern person, and we've talked about this a lot in the course of our life together, the difference between the next town over in the Midwest and the next town over in, say, the Northeast is a very different calculus. So a lot of this movie is Annie driving between Milwaukee and Chicago.
And that's a long drive?
No, it's about 90 minutes. It's not a long drive. It's nothing. So I do think that is a very Midwestern piece of the outlook. That is just like, okay, you do it, you know? And there are people who live in Milwaukee who will go to Chicago to, like, shop. Not hard.
Okay.
But it's also very interesting that, you know, Annie's life has kind of shriveled in on itself. She's single. She's living with these horrible people that she doesn't like.
Mm-hmm.
And her best friend is in a relationship with someone who lives in another city. So she's not around a lot.
Okay. See, I kind of missed that whole thing when watching this. I didn't get the Chicago aspect. I thought they were just all sort of there.
Nope.
Okay.
That's why we're not there yet, but he's not just a cop. He's a state trooper. And you don't find state troopers in cities. They're on the highways.
Okay.
Are you one of today's lucky 10,000?
I believe I may be, yes.
Very exciting. So, 10 minutes into the movie, Lillian and Doug get engaged. When Lillian becomes engaged to her boyfriend Doug, she asks Annie to be her maid of honor.
Mm-hmm.
So far, so good.
All right.
At the engagement party, Annie meets Lillian's bridesmaids. Rita, Lillian's long-married and cynical cousin. Becca, Lillian's naive newlywed co-worker. Megan, Doug's raunchy and foul-mouthed but friendly sister. And Helen, the wealthy and snobby trophy wife of Doug's boss. Hang on, backing up.
All right.
Raunchy, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Foul-mouthed?
Yeah, I don't know that she's particularly more or less foul-mouthed than anyone else in the movie.
Speaking as a person who swears a lot, you might say, except for 1 hour a week when we're subject to the whims of the FCC.
Gila refers to our regular gig on FM radio, which is called Off the Hook.
I'm not going to say I'm the only reason that we have to put an explicit rating on this podcast, but I'm not saying that.
No, I think we share those particular honors.
But with all that said, Megan did not stand out to me as particularly foul-mouthed. Raunchy, 100%. Bizarre, absolutely. But
yeah, I don't think she was particularly more or less foul-mouthed than anyone.
So, side note, we're introduced to Helen at this engagement party, which is at a country club. And she's definitely wearing a full-length, black, strapless evening gown. Floor length. In the middle of the afternoon.
When she should instead be wearing a middle-of-the-afternoon gown.
Clearly. Also, I'm willing to say a subtle commentary. Helen is very showy about her money.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment later in the movie where at the bridal shower, which is obviously later and we'll get there, but at the bridal shower, you see Annie arrive at their home and it says the Harris estate, established 2006. So they haven't been married that long. Annie and Helen are instantly jealous of each other's friendship with Lillian and become increasingly competitive for her attention. You know what's not here? The toasts.
Yeah, that scene is... I think it's maybe the first indication of where the film's really going and the tone it's taking.
Cringe-hilarious.
Cringe-hilarious. It's also where you get the sense that it's not just like Kristen Wiig being weird while everyone else is normal.
So Annie gets up to give a toast at the engagement party. First we see Lillian's father speaking, and he's like already talking about how much the wedding is going to cost and how he can't afford it. People laugh. He's like, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
All right, let's get the maid of honor up here. So she gets up and makes a very sweet little toast. And then Helen seizes the microphone and starts talking about how close she and Lillian are and how Dougie can't steal her away because I still need my drunken Saturday nights at Rockin' Sushi. And then Annie takes the mic back.
They just keep adding on to it, and no, I'm her best friend. No, I'm her best friend.
So at one point, Annie is talking, and then Helen shows up with another microphone in her hand, and they keep trying to dismiss everybody, and then they wind up singing That's What Friends Are For a cappella back to back in the middle of this room, and it's people are just standing there like, what is happening?
Yeah, everyone else just wants to get to the dessert wine.
We also miss all the parts at Annie's job where after the engagement party, a couple come in to start looking for an engagement ring. She's like, are you sure? And they're like, we're just going to browse around, and they just walk out.
Yeah, that's a whole like slow burn of her pressing the make it worse button over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first occasion in this movie where I was like, okay, she's doing the annoying Kristen Wiig character right now, the stupid Kristen Wiig character right now. Like, the character should know better than to be doing this, but she's all of a sudden cartoon stupid. This is one of my problems with this movie, I think, is that it keeps going back and forth between like a more sort of grounded movie and but she's cartoon nuts. I feel like this could have worked as one or the other thing, and it tries to be both.
I think that's fair. So the next time we see everybody together, continuing with the write-up here, Annie takes the bridal party to a Brazilian steak restaurant before visiting an upscale bridal shop where Helen uses her influence to gain entry as Annie failed to make a reservation. Side note, this is 100% true. You cannot just walk in to a store like that and expect to like get to try stuff on and get paid attention to.
Okay, I don't have a lot of experience going to bridal supply shops.
Speaking as both a bridesmaid and a bride, yeah, you have to make an appointment. They may not have somebody to help you if you just walk in off the street. They may not even let you in. My best friend and I went to David's bridal to just look at colors. We got in huge amounts of trouble. They're like, we can't help you. We're like, we're really just wanting to look and see what the colors look like in the different fabrics. And they're like, well, you can't do that. Then when we got married and I went to pick my veil, so I went and they're like, can we help you? I'm like, I really just need a veil. And they're like, do you think you can handle that by yourself? And I said, yeah, I'm good. Thanks. So no one was with me when I put it on my head and looked in the mirror and started to cry because I looked so bridal and so beautiful.
Aww.
I know. I had a real moment. There's a moment where Lillian says how great it is that Annie can always find these out-of-the-way restaurants that nobody's ever heard of, but they're lots of fun. So they eat, and then they go to this bridal shop, and they buzz, and Annie's like, oh, I thought we'd just come in and look around. And the woman's like, well, you can't do that. And our next appointment is, and then Helen's like, hi, it's Helen. And they like recognize her voice. All she says is Helen. I don't think she even says her last name.
Yeah. It turns out they know each other. So
Yes.
She buzzes them right in.
So they go in and they start looking at dresses, and then, well, hang on.
Ah, yes, we're missing a bit.
So the two pieces are Helen has a lot of money. Annie has not a lot of money. Helen is like, hey, let's all get this $800 dress. And so they have all chosen different bridesmaids' dresses. And all of a sudden, everybody starts sweating
because
and burping.
We did not mention, and the summary here didn't mention before this, that Annie had chosen the restaurant for them all to get dinner at.
Right. So Lillian had said
this.
how great it is that Annie finds these weird little restaurants that nobody's ever heard of, but they're always really good.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to the Brazilian steakhouse, and like they're bringing over meat on sticks.
And Annie's also like, oh, and you get a lot for your money, which is good. And,
yeah.
And of course, that's important to her.
Right. Briefly, also, when they're at this restaurant, Lillian goes to like use the bathroom, and Annie says, okay, I was thinking that for the bridal shower, we could do like a Parisian theme because Lillian's always wanted to go to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, oh, that's really nice. And Helen's like, I don't know, that's kind of played out. Maybe we could come up with a better idea. And then Megan suggests Fight Club.
Yeah, so not even like a theme or anything, just like we should actually have a fight club.
Female fight club.
And when she shows up, we all just start beating the shit out of her.
Congratulations, you're getting married, and we beat her up.
Peak Melissa McCarthy right out of the gate. I love it.
So Helen doesn't eat anything at the restaurant, and this is important to remember later. Because while we're at the bridal shop and everybody's wearing a different dress, and they're all very much like indicative of who these women are, I think is also a fair way to put it.
And Lillian comes out in a sample of the dress by the designer that is going to be designing her dress. So she's in this huge puffy, poofy white bridal dress.
Right, because Helen has an in with this designer in Paris, Lady Juju, or whatever the fuck her name was. So they happen to have like a 2-year-old sample.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all there in the dresses, and all of a sudden people are making weird noises. While trying on gowns, the entire party, except Helen, who chose not to eat, is stricken with food poisoning and begins to vomit and experience uncontrollable diarrhea, with Lillian defecating in the middle of the street while wearing a wedding dress.
Yes.
First, Rita announces she's gonna barf, runs for the toilet, and is throwing up.
And the employee at the store is horrified. She's
Don't
like,
go
no,
in the bathroom, not in the bathroom.
Yeah, not while you're wearing our dress. Yeah.
Then Megan goes running for the bathroom. She's like, I need the toilet. Rita's like, get out of here. So Megan goes and hoists herself up onto the vanity and shits into the sink.
Mm-hmm.
Then Becca comes in, is aiming for the toilet, misses, and throws up in Rita's hair.
And this movie does not shy away from showing these women running around and puking and the poop noises and the diarrhea noises and everything. And all of a sudden it's this insane storm of poop noises and puking and bodily functions everywhere. And it's kind of amazing. And it's also like surprising because you would expect this kind of scene in like a dumbass Judd Apatow, like bro comedy movie, for like fraternities to watch while drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a woman-led movie. The cast is all women, and it's them doing the puking and the pooping. And oh my God, how does this movie dare to do a thing like that with women? I thought it was hilarious.
So while this is all happening, Helen and Annie are standing there, and Helen says, did you eat some of that gray meat? Are you okay? And Annie obviously is not going to say, yeah, the restaurant that I chose gave everybody food poisoning. So she's like, no, I feel great. In fact, I could eat more right now. So Helen gives her a Jordan almond, and it takes every single like fiber of Annie's being to chew this one Jordan almond and not puke. The crowning moment of this segment is, in fact, when Lillian realizes that she needs to poo. Mm-hmm. But there's no bathroom available, so she just leaves the store. Running across a busy street.
In this fancy sample designer dress, and the employee like follows her running out the door going, don't you dare, don't you dare. And
so she begins shouting, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, it's happening. And then she just sits down in the middle of the street. It happened. The other piece that got completely elided here is that at the engagement party, so this is before the bridal shopping situation, Lillian had said to Annie, could you guys please try to get to know each other? So they wound up going to play tennis at the country club.
Yes. So Annie and Helen end up playing a game of doubles with Melanie Hutzel
and Nancy Walls.
Nancy Walls Carell.
And there is a moment where, you know, the stepkids are there. They don't like Helen at all. And Helen's trying to be like, oh, they're great. We're great. And her stepson just looks her dead in the face and is like, fuck you, Helen. It's a lovely moment. Helen's talking about how, she and Lillian play tennis all the time. And Annie's like, she hates sports. Well, she likes them now. Helen is horrible. Like, I cannot overstress enough how horrible Helen is. She's horrible. So. Annie's suggestion for a bachelorette party at Lillian's parents' lake house is overruled in favor of a Las Vegas trip planned by Helen. Unable to afford a first-class ticket and too proud to allow Helen to pay, Annie books a ticket in economy class.
You see Annie send the email out to everyone, here's my idea, it's her parents' lake house, and we could do the party there. And immediately after she presses send, Helen calls her and is like, I don't know about this.
A bachelorette at a lake house?
And she's like, no, we could go to Vegas instead. And then other people start calling her, and they're all like, yeah, Helen said we can do Vegas instead, so I guess we're going to Vegas. And so she went behind her back and called everyone and said, no, this is what we're doing.
So they're all going to Vegas, and you see the 6 women boarding the plane together.
And they establish that Annie's afraid to fly.
Annie is afraid to fly. She goes back to Coach. She sits down next to Annie Mumolo, who is freaking out.
Yes. So she's sitting next to someone else who's freaking out about being on the plane, and who is played by her sidekick from Barb and Star.
Yes. Who also is the woman with whom she wrote this script. She's a nervous flyer. And in the first class cabin, Lillian and Helen are sitting together. Obvi. Rita and Becca are sitting together. And Megan is seated next to a guy who she, like, immediately clocks as an air marshal. Yeah, and he spends most of the flight trying to convince her that he is not, in fact, an air marshal.
You didn't bring any luggage. You didn't put anything in the overhead bin. And then she's like, thank you for your service. And trying to be all sly about, I know you're the air marshal. She's like, if you want to sleep, I'll keep my eyes open and take a shift.
I'll take the first watch.
Yeah, I'll take the first watch. And he's trying to convince her, no, I'm not the air marshal.
So they're on a wide body jet, like a 2-aisle airplane. I've only seen 2-aisle airplanes for, like, international travel.
Yeah, 2 aisles as in there's an aisle on either side, so you have a left side of seats, a right side section of seats, and then a section of seats down the middle.
And it's interesting because who's flying a plane that big from Chicago to Vegas?
Right.
I flew a plane like that once from Minneapolis to Los Angeles. And the only reason it was flying from Minneapolis to Los Angeles was because after it stopped in Los Angeles, it continued to Hawaii.
Right. That's when you get the big planes out.
That's when you get the big planes out. If you're flying across the entire continent or between continents, you need a plane that big.
Yeah. I've flown New York to California and still not been on a plane that big.
You don't need a plane that big. I understand that it's probably better for, like, the choreography of the filmmaking.
Yeah, all the zaniness that happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, now that I think about it, most flights I've seen on film have been double aisle. The Brady Bunch, The Wedding Singer, this. Comedies on planes are on double aisle planes.
Okay, yeah, I guess there's room for more to happen.
Airplane?
Airplane was, I think Airplane was a single lane. I'm not sure.
I don't remember. But new interesting theory. I like it.
Yeah.
With all the passengers dancing in the aisles, please sit down and shut up. All right. So. Everybody's in first class. Annie's back in coach with Annie Mumolo. And we know she's not a good flyer. So she goes up to talk to Lillian during takeoff, and the flight attendants freak out. And Helen's like, hey, I have some pills. Take 2. You'll fall asleep. You'll wake up in Vegas. Spoiler alert. That's not what happens. So after everything levels off and the seatbelt sign is off, Helen goes back to see how Annie is doing. And then she says, you know what? Why don't you take my scotch? So we have just added alcohol to the tranquilizers. And she still doesn't fall asleep. In fact, she begins to hallucinate. There's a colonial woman on the wing of the plane. There's a colonial woman on the wing of the plane. I think she's churning butter. At one point, she gets up, like, commandeers the PA and makes this announcement.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Rita and Becca are having a heart-to-heart conversation. And they start talking about, their marriages, and Rita is miserable, and
Becca's the very demure sort of
young, newlywed,
prim and proper woman.
Could I have a glass of alcohol, please?
Meanwhile, Rita is like the disaffected mom who's sick of her husband and her kids and everyone. And she was announcing that she needs to go to Vegas to have a vacation that she can fantasize about so she can still have sex with her husband.
So they're talking about all of it, and she says a glass of alcohol, and Rita looks at the flight attendant and says 2 double 7 and 7s, please. So she said, it's sweet. You'll like it. Needless to say, they're both hammered.
Right.
So, okay. What it says here is, Annie accepts a sedative and liquor from Helen to calm her massive fear of flying and begins to hallucinate, suffering a paranoid breakdown that ends with her being apprehended by a U.S. Air Marshal. We are, again, eliding the details here.
Yes. The details, like when she gets to that point and she's freaking out and she's commandeered the PA and stuff, the air marshal, who has been claiming he's not an air marshal, leaps out from the seat behind Meg and going, I'm an air marshal, and like full body tackles her.
But also she had tried to sneak into first class.
Yeah, and then she was heading up to the cockpit.
Mm-hmm. And that was when they tackled her.
That was when he tackled her.
Yeah. So she had sat in first class.
Oh, there was the whole thing of you can't sit here, you can't sit here.
Well, at least my name is a name. Stove.
The flight attendant's like, my name is Steve.
Stove.
Yeah.
Shenanigans,
hilarity ensues.
And Helen's like, why don't you take my seat and I'll go sit back and coach. And one of the flight attendants is like, you can't do that. You can't do that.
And then as things come to a head, Rita and Becca start kissing. It's just all happening. And
the flight makes an emergency landing in Wyoming.
Yeah. And you see her get hauled off the plane in handcuffs. And
yes.
Everyone else is just begrudgingly getting off the plane with her.
By the by, Chicago to Vegas, one time zone.
Mm-hmm.
One time zone.
Yeah.
You do not need a plane with 2 aisles to travel one time zone.
Yeah.
Chicago is Central Time.
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas is Mountain Time.
Yeah.
You don't need that big a plane.
No, you do not. But,
you're not going to get jet lagged between Central Time and Mountain Time. This is what I'm saying.
But then you can't have an air marshal give a flying tackle to a woman on a 1-lane aircraft.
That is true. That is true.
And that is the crowning moment of the scene.
Mm-hmm. The plane makes an emergency landing and the party takes a bus back home to Chicago over it, by the way. I'm right.
Okay, then.
Annie apologizes, but Lillian decides it's best if Helen takes over planning the bridal shower and wedding.
So Annie is basically out of the picture, out of the wedding planning.
She's still the maid of honor, but she's like, Helen's just really good at planning stuff like this. I know this has been really overwhelming for you. And part of it is that, like, Annie has these ideas that then Helen swoops in and is like, well, you better. Meanwhile, Annie grows closer to Nathan Rhodes, an Irish-American Wisconsin State Patrol officer who let her off without a ticket for broken brake lights.
And who is Chris O'Dowd, being lovely.
Is he Irish-American or is he just Irish?
He is Irish. The character was Irish-American. There's a bit of dialogue where she's like, I didn't know they let you be a police officer if you're not a citizen. And he goes, actually, they don't. So, yeah, he's Irish-American. Okay. He's an immigrant. But he's Chris O'Dowd.
He's Chris O'Dowd. Nathan, who had been a regular customer at Annie's bakery, repeatedly encourages her to open a new bakery, although Annie is resistant to the idea. No, he's suggesting she bake, not necessarily that she open a new bakery.
Yeah.
Make a cake.
Yeah, he keeps talking about these great cream puffs she made and how much he loved them. And he's like, you should bake something. And she's just, no.
I don't do that anymore. Which we know is a lie because we've seen her do it before.
Right. We see her doing a thing of cupcakes. She decorates them in different ornate ways and puts fondant leaves on the top and everything. And I think they're implying that is she making this for the party or something. But then you see her just in her kitchen alone eating the cupcake. And you realize, oh, she just did this by herself. And that's really sad.
So he pulls her over because he's always on the road between Chicago and Milwaukee.
Right. He's the one there with the speed gun.
Right. At one point, he lets her use the speed gun. It's very funny. They clock somebody going 90. They chase them.
Yeah.
After a romantic night together, Nathan surprises her with baking supplies, but Annie panics and leaves abruptly. And we see that later he keeps trying to call her, and she's not returning his calls.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I wish they would have come back to. You know, he surprises her in the morning with, I picked up some supplies, and he's got all these flour and sugar and measuring cups and everything.
Thought it might be fun if we baked together.
Yeah, and she pales and just awkwardly runs out of the place, and he's wondering what he did wrong. And I was hoping that they would come back and she could explain why that happened. Maybe there was some trauma or something, or like maybe it reminded her of her ex or something like that. But they just never come back and explain it. She just freaked out and left.
Exactly. And, you know, I get it. Sometimes when there's something, and even if you like it, if it happened around something that was bad.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here's an example. I like to sing.
Mm-hmm.
I like to sing. And when I was in 8th grade, I did not get into the swing choir at school. Yes, this was 30 years ago. Wonderful things have happened in my life since. But I was convinced that I was not, in fact, a good singer, and I stayed away from organized music stuff for a few years after that. I didn't take choir in school until I was a senior because I didn't get into the swing choir in 8th grade. And then I just spiraled on it, and that I was only in the choir at the synagogue because my dad was the rabbi and they had to. And then when I started taking individual voice lessons, I was like, well, you know, we're paying this guy, so of course he's going to say I'm not bad.
We should point out, for those unfamiliar, you have awards on the shelf for your singing voice. You are contracted to provide that singing voice at certain events in exchange for money professionally.
Yeah.
You know, that you have an objectively nice singing voice and you've found actual external success with it.
Yeah, but there were a few years there where I just wouldn't do it because I was confident I was really shitty. So I understand walking away from this thing you love because it's wrapped up in all this trauma and failure.
I also understand that. There are forms of creative expression that were part of my life very prominently during a bad relationship that I had and that I haven't really gone back to since. And, you know, perhaps sometime I should. I've made a baby step or two, but
yes, you have.
But you know, I'll just leave that there. But the sense that something is associated with a bad part of your life, I get that. I get wanting to not deal with that, or, you know, at least just put it on the back burner for a while. But they never explain it. And so you end up kind of seeing it from Nathan's point of view, which is just, WTF, what did I do?
So this movie is making us sympathize with a cop.
Yes. I believe I said in the first part of this, like all my favorite cops, Nathan is fictional.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's a point where he says, if I weren't a cop, I'd probably still go out and shoot people, other than I'd get arrested for it.
He's got that great delivery, Chris O'Dowd, and it is so nice to see him in things that aren't written by a terrible person.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Annie is later fired from the jewelry store for cussing out a bratty teenage customer, and is then kicked out by her roommates, forcing her to move in with her mother.
And again, it was a funny scene and everything, but it's also like, is the character this stupid? And the answer is yes. Kristen Wiig's character is this stupid, where she ends up getting riled up, and it culminates in her using an epithet that echoes throughout the store, and everyone's heads turn. And because
she gets triggered, if you'll pardon the parlance, by this girl coming in and asking to get a best friends forever necklace for her friend. She's like, forever? Forever's a really long time. Do you think you're really going to stay friends forever? And then they start fighting, and then she calls a 13-year-old the C word, and then she loses her job. And then her roommates ask her to leave. You know, Matt Lucas is like, we realized it's kind of immature for adult siblings to have a roommate. So you got to go.
And this is after she had earlier in the movie, she had gone to the two of them and said, I think your sister should be paying rent. We could split it 3 ways. It'd be much easier for all of us. And they take major umbrage at this.
And they're like, well, she can't work because she's here on a tourist visa. So all she can do is tour. And then Rebel Wilson's like, oh, I suppose I could go out and prostitute myself. And she's like, and, you know, you're supposed to be like, ha, 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 a fat sex worker. Ha, ha, ha. And she finds out they're reading her diary.
Yes.
Rebel Wilson's like, I thought it was a very sad handwritten novel. But then I saw there was stuff about us, and then I realized it was your diary. I don't like Rebel Wilson. I'm sorry.
No, but in that sense, she was well cast in this movie.
There was not too much of her in this movie.
There was not too much of her, and she was playing the horrible and off-putting and creepy, awful person, along with Matt Lucas, who I associate with a very sweet character.
Exactly. Me too, now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was, I saw Nardole for the first time and winced, I'm sure.
Yeah. I can see how that would have been. Like, you're watching Doctor Who and Nardole shows up and you're like, oh my God, he's going to be that creepy brother character.
Right.
It's funny because, like, I showed you some of his stuff from Little Britain, his character stuff, where he played characters that were really creepy and off-putting, and that was the joke.
Right.
Then it makes sense going from that to this movie.
There's a moment in a season finale of Doctor Who. Oh, it was Capaldi's last episode. Where it's been a while since the Doctor and his companions have been anywhere together.
Yeah.
And Nardole, who's this character played by Matt Lucas, shows up at the home of Bill, the other companion, and says, "It's me!" And he throws his arms out and goes, "Naughty!" And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cute! And I'm sorry, I just peeked to hell, and I apologize.
It's worth peeking over Nardole. Nardole's a lovely character.
Naughty! And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, given the fact that all of their scenes are together, there is paradoxically too much Rebel Wilson and not enough Matt Lucas in this movie. Although Matt Lucas is also playing a... Okay. So right before she moves out of this apartment, though, she gets the invitation for the bridal shower, which is like a pink and white striped box. And she opens it. And you hear Helen's voice read the invitation, and there's another little door inside it. So she opens the little door, and a live butterfly flies out of it.
Yes. The Asia O'Hara moment.
The Asia O'Hara moment.
Except this butterfly's alive.
Yes, one butterfly, and it stayed alive.
And then it's like getting in her hair and annoying her and stuff. But
so you hear Helen read this thing, and it's like, hey, we're having a Parisian bridal shower to celebrate Lillian at Helen's house. And at the end of it, she goes, yay! And, like, I still don't know if this was a recording or just, her hearing it in her voice. But either way, so this Parisian shower. And then...
Paris-themed shower at her house instead of, like, a destination
neutral third place or
anything. Like, and this was all the stuff that she was crapping on.
It's just all played out.
Yeah.
So. We get to the shower. And her mom is there. It's, all the women, and it's at Helen's house, and
the house, I should mention,
the estate,
the estate, the mansion where Helen lives in this movie, is played by a real life mansion in Pasadena, which was also used as the exterior view of stately Wayne Manor in the 1960s Batman series and film. It's this big brickwork mansion. It's got like all these roof peaks and like a castle turret and this huge circular driveway. And it's iconic just as stately Wayne Manor, but it's an actual private residence that's used as a lot of film locations. And I recognized it because there is a Batman fandom wiki out there, and the 60s Wayne Manor article, I wrote most of it. So yes, that is the same location they use for her mansion.
So you see her come driving in, and she drives down the road, and there's like a person standing in the middle of nowhere who says, "Are you a guest of Helen whatever the third?" And she says, yes. He hands her a glass of pink lemonade and says, "Staff will meet you at the stables."
Yes.
So you drive up to the stables and like...
And she has no drink holder in her car, so she's got to drive while holding the glass of lemonade with her other hand. She's getting more and more pissed off, and she's also drinking out of this long cocktail straw and going, ugh, that is good. And she's angry that it's good. And yeah.
So you see her on a horse being led to the main house. It's a thing. There's all this like outdoor Parisian shit and a great big cookie that says Lillian and Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody calls him Dougie or Doug, but Helen only calls him Douglas. Anyway, she then travels to Helen's home in Chicago for the extravagant bridal shower, which is Parisian themed, an idea of Annie's that Helen had previously rejected. So they're opening presents and, you know, Rita gave her all their towels. And then she opens this little box from Annie, and it's got pictures of them from growing up because they've been friends like their whole lives.
Since they were children.
And inside, Annie has sourced Lillian's favorite things from Milwaukee to have in this new place. Lillian gets all teary. She says this is the best gift ever. It's very sweet, very heartfelt. It's lovely. And then Helen says, oh, I wasn't able to get you anything. I just got you a card. Mm-hmm. And Lillian said, you planned, it's fine. So she opens the card, and it turns out that Helen's gift to Lillian is a trip to Paris for a bridal fitting. Because, remember, Annie had said Lillian's always wanted to go to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
So Lillian freaks out, and she's like, oh my God, this is the best gift ever. And then Annie says, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, and then she has her breaking moment.
She's like, you would think all of this is ridiculous, but now you're in all of it with your perfect hair and whatever, and they have this huge fight. Back to Wiki for a sec. After Helen upstages Annie's heartfelt gift by gifting Lillian a trip to Paris, an enraged Annie throws a tantrum and destroys the outside decor. And at one point she's like, this huge cookie, I didn't get any of the cookie. She goes and like punches through the cookie.
Knocks it over and like wrestles it to the ground and ruins the Lillian Douglas cookie.
She's trying to like lift a fountain. It's not working. There's like a fountain with like chocolate fondue in it. And she just starts like throwing melted chocolate all over the place.
Like, enjoy your unsanitary chocolate.
Angry that Annie has now ruined every event in the wedding, Lillian kicks her out of the shower and wedding and ends their friendship. And at one point you had heard Megan say, I love the Favors and their little pink berets. No idea. You don't know what that's about. So then as Lillian has kicked Annie out, she's walking out and she pauses by the door and Lillian says, no, she does not get a party favor. She does not get a dog. Yeah. Helen is giving out puppies as party favors.
Yeah, and you see the butler there with a puppy that he was going to hand her.
No, she does not get a puppy. She does not get a party favor. Megan took 9.
Yeah.
We find out later 9.
At the event itself, she admits to taking an extra 1 or an extra 2. Mm-hmm. And later you see she took 9. But also we should point out live animals are bad gifts. Never give them.
It's true. My grandpa always said never accept, but also never give a gift that eats. So you see Annie driving back. And you see Megan pass her on the road.
With a car full of dogs' faces in each window.
But it's like a 1992 Plymouth minivan with the wood paneling.
Yes.
It's perfect. It's a light blue Woody. It's great. So Annie is mad. And then she sees a porcupine, hedgehog, something. She sees an animal.
One or the other.
So she hits the brakes, but she still hasn't gotten her taillights fixed. So she gets rear-ended. And the driver who hit her just takes off.
Yeah.
Hits and, in fact, runs.
Mm-hmm.
As Annie returns home, her still broken taillights result in a car accident from which the other driver flees. Nathan is the responding officer, much to Annie's chagrin, and he admonishes her for not fixing her taillights or taking responsibility for her life.
Yeah, when they first met, he pulls her over for driving like shit, but also he says, get your taillights fixed. And
it's the thing about taillights, you need to have them.
She hasn't gotten them fixed, and there he is again. After she's broken his heart, more hilarity ensues.
So, as they're having this discussion on the side of the road, Ted shows up. she didn't know who else to call. Ted arrives shortly after to give Annie a ride, causing Nathan to storm off in disgust.
Yes, he drives up and leans out the window, goes, "Hey, fuck buddy, you need a ride?"
I didn't know who else to call.
Yeah.
Because her mom's still at the shower. However, when Ted asks Annie to perform oral sex on him as he drives, she demands to be let out of the car and walks home, leaving Ted for good. Yeah, he's like, "Are you tired? Do you want to you could put your head in my lap and take a nap?"
John Hamm is really good at playing that gross guy.
Yeah. Oof. Annie becomes reclusive, but a visit from Megan finally motivates her to take control of her life. "I'm sad. I have no friends." And Megan's like, "You have a friend right here in front of you." And she, like, starts hitting Annie and, like, jumps on top of her. And she's like, "You gotta fight for your shitty life.
Yeah.
I'm the world and you gotta fight for your shitty life."
And she's slapping at her, and Annie's like, "Stop it, stop it." And finally breaks and hits her back.
Okay. And, like, that was apparently what she needed to snap out of her funk.
Mm-hmm.
Annie resumes baking, gets her car fixed, and tries to make amends with Nathan, who ignores her. So how does Annie resume baking?
Well, the baking sequences are fun because you can clearly see when they're just showing hands because something complicated is being done with fondant or whatever. And then they cut back to a wider shot of Kristen Wiig doing it when it's just like whisking stuff in a bowl.
Yeah, not entirely dissimilar to, like, dance scenes.
Yes.
Or gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
Or piano playing.
Yeah, no, they very obviously had a baking double. But she makes a carrot cake that has an apology written on it.
Because the night they first met, Nathan offered her a baby carrot.
Yes.
Because he had baby carrots.
Mm-hmm.
They sat on the hood of his car and ate baby carrots. She goes to get the car fixed. The guy who owns the body shop is named...
Oh, Bill Cosby.
Spelled Cozbi.
Yes. Yeah, Nathan gave her the guy's number, and he's like, "He owes me one, he'll give you a good price, but don't mention the Bill Cosby thing. He hates it. He hears it all the time, and it drives him mad." So
it's not Brian Doyle Murray. It's the guy who looks like Brian Doyle Murray.
Yeah.
And in addition to getting her car fixed, it turns out that Bill Cosby, and Rhodes had, like, an arrangement, and everybody that Nathan sent to Bill Cosby's body shop, it was on the house.
Yeah. Which she didn't expect. She was ready to have to pay for it.
And we also don't know what the precipitating incident was.
We don't know why he owes Nathan so much, but he does. And so Annie gets her car fixed for free. Going back to the cake, she made him a carrot cake and left it on his doorstep. And then she runs off into her car to watch him get it. And he opens the door. He gets his newspaper. He looks down and sees the box, opens the box, reads the apology on the cake, and just closes it again and leaves it down on his doorstep in disgust and goes back in his house. And so she keeps driving by his house and she keeps seeing that the box is still there. It's still there. Now raccoons are scratching at it.
And she introduced her mom to Bill Cosby.
Yes.
So things are hard. And then the day of the wedding, her mom's like, "Are you sure you don't want to come with me?" No, not even that. "Are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, Like, "I'll make you a tuna sandwich. Mom, it's 10 o'clock in the morning." So she's at home and she's watching something. Castaway?
Yeah, she's stuck at her mom's house and her mom's like, "You know what just came back from the Netflix? Castaway with Tom Hanks."
It's like Forrest Gump, but on an island.
Yeah, you'll love it. And this is Netflix, as in send you a DVD through the mail.
100,000 titles.
And you get to watch the DVD all you want and then send it back and get another one. So, yeah, she's got Castaway on DVD. And so she's just sitting on the couch alone watching this Castaway DVD. And it's the scene where Tom Hanks is crying because he lost Wilson the volleyball.
And then...
and she's crying right along with it. "Oh, Wilson."
And then the doorbell rings. And it's Helen, which seems odd.
Yes.
And Helen's like, "Can you help me? We can't find Lillian." So, on the day of the wedding, Helen appears at Annie's doorstep begging for help finding Lillian, who has disappeared. They apparently had looked for her in Chicago. They couldn't find her.
And this is her wedding day.
And this is her wedding day. So, Annie's like, "I have an idea of someone who can help." So they go driving out to where Rhodes is usually stationed. And she's like, "I need your help." And he's very studiously ignoring her.
Yeah. Closes his car window. Very much, "I'm not listening."
Nah.
Yeah.
So she starts driving past him in any way she can think of to get his attention. She's driving slowly. She's speeding. She's doing donuts. She's drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at me. I have a bottle of booze. Look at me. I'm topless.
And like she reclined the seat so far so back you couldn't see either of them.
Yeah. And so she drives past like that, screaming, "Who's driving this car? We don't know."
Like 15 times.
Throwing stuff out the window. "Look at me. I'm littering," because he had established that littering really annoys him.
So finally, he's like, "Oh my God, stop." And they pull over to the side of the road. And then they're like, "We need your help. We can't find Lillian." So they like track her cell phone and he gives them an address. And Annie says that's her apartment. He's like, "No one thought to check her apartment. I can't." So they go off to the apartment.
Better go save her from her apartment.
On this whole drive, by the way, Helen and Annie finally talk. Helen apologizes to Annie, tearfully revealing that others seek her out for her skill in planning events, but she does not have any true friends and feels lonely in her marriage. Duh. So she starts crying, and Annie starts laughing. She's like, you look ugly when you cry. I've never seen you look ugly. And then she's like, "No, I don't. No, I don't." It's actually very funny. But for the first time, Helen is admitting that Annie knows Lillian better, and Annie's going to know what to do.
And Annie has the shit-eating grin reaction to it all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if what they were going for was like a tender moment, but it's pretty fucked up, actually.
But also Helen admitting that she didn't have it all under control.
Yeah.
And no matter how much she had been shitting on all of Annie's ideas, she actually needed her help.
Mm-hmm.
So they pull up in front of the apartment building and they're about to get out of the car. And Annie's like, "Would you mind if I did this by myself?" So Annie goes in, finds Lillian hiding, having become overwhelmed by Helen's extravagant wedding planning and fear of leaving her life in Milwaukee. They live a 5-minute drive away from each other. She's like, that's not going to be the case anymore. And Helen planned all this stuff, and my dad can't afford any of this. Like, that's very not touched on. Mm. And she's like, "Okay, we got to get you in your dress." And then Lillian says, "That's the other problem. This bespoke designer dress from Paris is hideous."
Yes, it's this ridiculous thing with like puffs in all the wrong places.
There's a hat. There's oh God, it's like hideous.
There's this shoulder thing going on. It's got the Michelin Man bumps everywhere, and it's fantastically awful.
So she's like, "We're gonna fix it." So then smash cut to the wedding itself, and Annie and Lillian have very clearly fixed the dress. A lot of parts are missing, mm-hmm. which is good. It's still ungepatchked. But less so.
You're going to have to spell that for me when I do the transcript of this episode or when you do it. But
yes, ungepatchked. It's almost onomatopoetic, that word.
Well, it's certainly poetic.
Annie reconciles with Lillian and resumes her role as maid of honor. Again, duh. So we're at the wedding, and we see all the bridesmaids and the groomsmen and Lillian and Doug, and they're like in the middle of a pool.
Yeah, somehow.
There's fireworks, and lasers spell out "they do" after they say "I do." And then after they kiss, Helen pulls out a microphone and is like, "And now to sing her favorite song, here's Lillian's favorite band, Wilson Phillips." And then Wilson Phillips show up and sing "Hold On."
Yeah, and he gives her a look and she goes, "That was the last one, I promise." Yeah, it's Wilson Phillips and they're singing "Hold On." And I can't stand Wilson Phillips. But, there they were.
There they were.
It was really them. Why are they hanging out with space pants?
After the wedding, Annie and Helen finally become friends.
Ish.
Do we...
There's at least a level of sort of mutual acceptance that happens.
And you hear Annie say, "Maybe I can come in and we can all go to Rockin' Sushi."
Mm-hmm.
And Helen's like, "Oh, that would be so lovely." Because, it's that thing that always happens in something like this where I don't have any girlfriends and nobody likes me because I'm just too perfect. Like, it's very high school.
Mm-hmm.
Annie also reconciles with Nathan, who arrives unexpectedly to pick Annie up after the wedding, a gesture strongly implied to have been arranged by Helen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess.
I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it, but it would make sense more than sort of any other explanation for why he's there.
Yeah, probably.
And he's there in his cop car, but he's wearing just a regular suit.
Annie and Nathan kiss, then ride away in Nathan's police car, which, again, eliding a little bit of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, I gotta go do a thing.
Yeah, he gets called on the radio, and he's like, oh, I'm not wearing my uniform. I could get in trouble.
I could get in trouble. Do you want to come with me? She's like, yeah. She starts walking toward the front seat, and he's like, nope, you can't. You gotta get in the back. And, like, he touches her head, does the whole thing.
Yeah, she yelps as he pushes her head down, and he's like, sorry, reflex.
And then he's like, yeah, I gotta take you in. There are warrants for your arrest. And she says, for what? And he's like, speeding, littering, reckless driving. It's very funny. She said, can we turn the siren on? And then you see them drive away with the siren on. And that's the end of the movie.
That's, yeah. Until
the credits start. And then they go back to, you see Wilson Phillips singing again. Mm-hmm. And everybody's, air drumming and singing along. And it's great.
Behind the credits.
And then, smash cut to
Meg and John, the air marshal. He's in her bed in his underwear, and she's setting up a video camera to film them.
Air Marshal John and Mai's first sexual encounter.
Yes.
And Mai's.
But then she jumps on him, and it's cute, and they're played by real life spouses, and
it's weird and creepy and sweet.
Exactly, and that's the movie.
So, as we discussed, this became that moment of, hey, it's a comedy with women, and it happens about every 10 years, and then nothing happens. By the way, it occurred to me, 2001-ish, The Sweetest Thing and Charlie's Angels.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Like clockwork, every 10 years.
So we had Everything Everywhere last year.
Yeah, but I wouldn't qualify Everything Everywhere in the same way.
Maybe not, but it was, I think, the big woman-led comedy action movie that won all the awards, and everyone's like, this is going to change everything. But then we also have Barbie this year. Yeah. Which is the same thing. It's a big woman-led movie.
Which has now grossed over $1 billion, and it's going to change everything. No, it's not. So, critic Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly pointed out the significance of Bridesmaids' success as follows.
This is still from the Wiki article.
So far, the message that Hollywood seems to have taken from the incredible success of Bridesmaids is a predictably reductive one. Something along the lines of, hey, look, raunchy comedies for women with awesome gross-out scenes in the middle of them can be big box office, too. The message that Hollywood should be taking is a comedy that's raunchy and fearless and also brilliantly written and shrewdly honest about what's really going on in women's lives may actually connect with the fabled non-teenage audience. Remember them? So, having come to it now, what do you think?
Oh, I think this movie's going to change everything.
Oh, God love
I think 2012 is going to be a really good year.
Especially if me and you see it in together.
Yes. No, it's really interesting because, looking at it as a product of its time and also as a product of the singular people behind it, I don't know if this was as satisfying a movie experience for me personally as it could have been if it just did one thing or the other more directly, instead of trying to straddle the line and keep going back between something more sentimental and a cartoon. But I think for what it was really good. And as a movie, it was a lot of fun to watch. The people in it were obviously fun to watch and doing a great job at it. The casting was great. The direction was great. And I think the writing was really good. And there is an unrated cut of this movie also on the Blu-ray disc, which I may throw on at some point.
It's 6 minutes longer.
It's 6 minutes longer, but often in the unrated cut of a movie, there'll be alternate cuts of things, like in Paul Feig's Ghostbusters, where it's a little longer, but also there are entire scenes that are just alternate cuts with completely different jokes.
Didn't they do the same thing in Anchorman? They released a separate Anchorman 1.5 or something?
Yeah, they did that once or twice with Anchorman, where they just took the cut footage and assembled it together into an alternate version of the movie. I didn't see that, I don't think. I saw Anchorman, but I don't know that I saw the alternate universe editions of that.
Yeah,
but
I know that it exists. I just haven't
But yeah, I'm interested in that unrated cut. I might throw this on for the commentaries and deleted scenes and things.
I want to see the special features.
Yeah, I want to know more. And this was a satisfying watch. I do not at all regret putting this in my ear holes and eye holes.
Which, again, is really all we can hope for in this little experiment of ours.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yay, thank you. And listeners, thank you for taking the ride with us once again. We are always happy to have you join us here on the Modern Technology Podcast Network. And if you would like to be part of the conversation too, there are multiple ways in which you can reach out to us. You can visit our website at modern.technology/contact, where all of this information lives, but we're going to read it anyway. And there's also even an email form. So you can use the form on the webpage at modern.technology/contact. Alternatively, you can send us an email without going to the page and just email us at watches@modern.technology. You can also call us, which is very exciting. Leave us a message. I don't know if we've gotten any real voicemails, but I hear our car's warranty is about to expire.
Yeah, our car's warranty is about to expire, and I think our Microsoft also needs fixing somehow, but apart from that, we have not heard anything on this voicemail box that I went to all the trouble of setting up so that you could record a little message for us to be played on a future edition of this program.
Please feel free to give us a call at 1-929-399-8414. Also, if you have a moment and would be interested in doing such a thing, see if you can leave us a review at wherever you're listening to us. We'd love to hear your feedback. But yeah, we thank you for hanging out with us for hopefully less time than it has taken us to record this, because sweet googity moogity, honey, we've been talking for a long time.
We have. We do go on.
We do go on. So we are going to wrap it up, I think. Where's your Firefly, Mr. Firefly?
My Firefly is up. I am glad we have this movie, and we'll be going back to the disc it's stored on.
Yay! Me too, but I think that goes without saying because this is not the Tao of Steve. So, for Modern Technology Watches, I'm Gila Drazen.
And I am Rob Vincent.
And we'll see you at the movies.
We will catch you on the flip side. You've been listening to episode 309 of Modern Technology Watches with Gila Drazen and Rob Vincent. Go to modern.technology on the web for more info on this show, our other work, and our social media cupcakes. Our music is The Promise by Torley Wong, released Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. Find more from Torley at torley.com. Thank you, Torley. Content from wikipedia.org is used under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. This podcast is released under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 and is a production of Joyful Firefly, LLC. Email us at watches@modern.technology. And if you like us, tell someone. If this is only a chick flick, then call me a chick. Joe Morgenstern, The Wall Street Journal. Well, Joe Morgenstern, The Wall Street Urinal. Joe McGillicuddy, The Wall Street Feet. If this is a movie, then call me a man. Okay. If this is ain't even gotten to the UPC symbol yet, and this is already all gone to pot.